SportsBit is powered by BetOnline, driving the opening odds market since 2001. Visit sportsbookreview.com to learn more about BetOnline and its A+ rated platform in the link below.
Here we are, SportsBit, betting insight today, Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, November 2nd. College football, big game breakdown, one Friday game, UCLA and Utah. And then we'll get to LSU-Alabama and Va-Tech and Miami and Bedlam. All that coming up. Not much drama, Teddy. 5-0 Astros early. It's 5-0 in the top of the second. Only 2 hits the rest of the way. They were all over Darvish again. Tough beat if you had the over 7.5. Dodgers had a lot of rallies, but left 10 guys on base. Congrats to the champs. And no more SI cover jinx, as Sports Illustrated predicted this in 2014.
Sure. And let's give the Astros credit. Let's give Lance McCullers credit. I mean, there was very little drama in Game 7 after McCullers escaped jams in the first, second, and I guess we'll call them as the bullpen in the third inning. But the bottom line is Dodgers couldn't get a clutch hit. And that was, something that they desperately needed last night. And when you have the over, you don't mind 5 runs in the first 2 innings. You want it 3-2. You don't want it 5-0. Obviously, with that 5-run lead, the Astros were able to be aggressive. Their pitching was dominant last night. Certainly, Charlie Morton came in and pitched great down the stretch. And let's give Houston credit. They faced the abyss. They came back. Congratulations to 2017 Houston Astros, your World Series champions. As for you, Darvish, we told you here on SportsBit yesterday, he can't throw his slider. And guess what?
Nope.
He couldn't throw his slider. Ugly outing.
Should have been out of the game when it was 2-0 in second and third and nobody out in the top of the second. Some people thought Kershaw should have started the game too. Bad beat in the NBA, side and total. Portland plus 3.5 and under 192, down from 196 against the Jazz. 39 all at the half. 112-103 final in overtime. 94 all at end regulation.
Yeah, I mean, the Blazers managed to blow a 6-point lead in the last couple of minutes of regulation. They never trailed by more than 2 in the fourth quarter. So Portland was the right side. The under was the right side. Overtime is where right sides go to die. Unfortunately, that was the case if you had Blazers or under last night in Utah.
Bad for the books. Action. Central Michigan plus 7 down to plus 4. Won outright on the road against Western Michigan. And the Cavs Pacers total 215 to 218. For the third time this year, the Cavs have lost at home as a double-digit favorite. They didn't lose their third home game till January last year. Pacers scored 62 in each half.
Yeah, I mean, the markets came in against Western Michigan, starting the Frost QB, Reese Goddard. They busted out to a 14-point lead, but Central rallied, scored the last 3 touchdowns of the game, and Goddard wasn't pretty, just 6 of 18 for 42 yards. Bettors got that one right. That was a bad result for the house. And boy, there were a bunch of games in the NBA where bettors were ahead of the bookmakers last night. I mean, this is a Cleveland team that continues not to play any defense whatsoever. Money pours in on the over in that contest. And we're talking about a defense now ranked number 29 in the NBA for the Cavs. Dallas is the only one worse, just by a fraction of worse than Cleveland, who's been absolutely a dastard. That's the disaster. The very old backcourt. Derrick Rose, J.R. Smith, they're not defending on the perimeter. And Collison and Oladipo combined for more than a point per minute against them. 48 points in 44 minutes. 15 assists, only 4 turnovers. Cleveland has a defensive problem that turned into the sportsbook problems last night.
Also bad for the books. How about the Suns, since they fired Watson and told Bledsoe to beat it? Plus 13 down to 11, won outright at Washington. Bulls Heat total 201.5 down to 196, fell 188. And we told you yesterday that the Rockets got to push the tempo. Houston and over from 5-6, and the total 212 to 214. They ran out the Knicks in the Garden.
Yeah, I mean, with the Suns taking the money and on Phoenix. That's one just for you guys here on SportsBit. Don't let the markets know that the Suns have gotten so much better over the last couple of weeks, because they were still double-digit dogs last night. But it's a Wizards team that, once again, lacks bench depth. They're without Otto Porter last night, and they really couldn't make up for his absence. And as for the Rockets, I mean, we told you they wanted to get their pace going. What'd they do? They got their pace going. Easy rout over the New York Knickerbockers and the Rockets, and over get the money. Books on the wrong side of both of those decisions. Meanwhile, bettors able to cash in.
College football early week line moves. Game we'll talk about in a second. Friday night, Utah taking money at home to the Bruins. UCLA cannot stop the run. Colorado taking money against Arizona State. The Wisconsin move, which I don't understand. Indiana's been tough. They took Michigan to overtime. Wisconsin struggled with Illinois last week. Tom Herman, 14 in a row as a dog, ATS, since he was the OC at Ohio State. They're +7 at TCU. Oklahoma taking money. Mike Gundy, 2-10 against Oklahoma in Bedlam. Missouri, Florida, Arizona, USC, Tate taking money with Arizona. Arizona 4-0 since Tate became the starting QB.
Sure. Of all the moves here, the one that surprised me maybe the most is the money coming from Missouri. And I know that Missouri's starting to get a bandwagon. And I know they won, 40 points on the road last week. But generally, when you have the team that just fired their head coach, they're playing an inferior physical foe to the type of foes they've been playing of late. Those type of teams tend to get money, but not this week. Randy Shannon's going to try to get these Florida players to care. The markets don't seem to think they're actually going to care. Missouri, been a popular play. And, of course, Arizona, we've been talking about Khalil Tate for weeks now, Pauly. Let's talk about him again. The market's finally starting to pay attention to Arizona's emerging talent at the quarterback position.
Up next, big game breakdown. UCLA-Utah and Virginia Tech and Miami. Straight ahead on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey guys, thanks for stopping by Sportsbook Review, YouTube's largest sports betting channel. Every day we're here giving you the most up-to-date news and info, all to help you make the best bet. On top of that, guys, it's free. So look, do us a favor, click the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment or a question. Our goal here is to make sure that everyone becomes a smarter, better. So join the SPR Army today and start winning with Sportsbook Review.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown, always sponsored and powered by Bet Online. Check out the bonus page at sportsbookreview.com for the latest and best offers to open a new account today. Friday night, Fox Sports 1, Utah, 6.5, 59 at home to the Bruins. I thought Mora was a good coach. Anything but. Looked like a good fit his first 3 seasons when he was coaching Neuheisel's recruits. Then it turned around once those players were his own. Neuheisel. You see this graphic. 2012, 9-5, 10-3, 10-3. Mora's recruits 8-5, 4-8. Rosen was hurt last year, but still a bad season. And then 4-4 this year, 11-21-1 ATS the last 3 seasons. Can't stop a run, Teddy, and penalties a big problem.
Penalties a big problem year after year. And it's one thing when you have an elite team and all kinds of talent, and you have guys that are continually making mistakes. USC is a team that has better talent than UCLA, or has had better talent, and they've been able to overcome some of that, the penalties mistakes, the mental mistakes, because of that elite talent level. UCLA doesn't have that. They got a bunch of athletes, and they haven't necessarily put it all together. And you look at the penalty yards per game over the last 3 years, and this is a problem that Jim Mora Jr. has not been able to fix. In 2015, they rank 117 out of 128 teams in penalty yards. This year, they rank 127 out of 129 teams in penalty yards. That's a continual problem. And we're talking about a squad that's now covered just 11 of their 33 ball games over the last 3 seasons. Significant money losers. And oh, by the way, you talked about their run defense. Their quarterback's hurt too. Josh Rosen, which is a big part of the money coming in on Utah this week. Rosen hasn't practiced yet this week, although there's a chance he could play. That being said, there are guys taking shots at Josh Rosen in the media. Here's Mora's quote. I think it's ludicrous that anyone would question Josh Rosen's toughness when they don't know the nature of his injury. In all fairness to my comment, for a broadcaster who knows Zippo about what's going on down there to question the toughness of Josh Rosen is, I don't know, I guess it drives rating. I would put very little stock into anything that Brock Heward has to say about football. That will be controversial, but it's the truth. I've known that kid since he was in college. So rip in the media. It looks as if Rosen cannot go, it's going to be Devin Modster as the QB. Modster, 7 of 12 for 77 yards in their 19-point loss to Washington. Although his teammates were saying that the game slowed down for him as it progressed. The quote from the center, Scott Kisenberry, we're extremely confident in Devin should he get the start. So there's hope for UCLA if they don't have their starting QB, but don't underestimate Rosen. I'm talking about a guy who leads the Pac-12 in passing yards per game, and total offense, even after leaving early against the Huskies last week.
Then you have Utah, and they're usually solid fundamentals, don't have a lot of talent, the opposite of Mora teams. They win by grinding it out. And not this year. They get up to a great start ATS. Were feisty and almost upset USC on the road, but they're 1-4 in Pac-12 play, lost twice straight up as favorites. They've been outrushed in every single game. They went with Huntley over Williams at quarterback. Huntley was okay, then missed the Stanford and USC games. He hasn't played well since he came back. They were blitzed at home by Arizona State. Then they went to Oregon and got ran out, and Oregon had all kinds of issues. They lost by 23 in that game, but we'll see if the old Utah style returns. UCLA dead last at 129, allowing 307 yards per game, and 128 at 6.1 yards per rush. Whittingham, we have to be committed to the run as well. Zach Moss had 10 carries for like 5.3 yards a carry, so we have to give him the ball more. That was going to be a point of emphasis going into the game, and then we got behind and went away from that a little bit too early. So you say check the status of Rosen. If he doesn't play, you lean. I would lean Utah. You agree?
I have a hard time laying points with Utah right now, but we know what the Utes want to do in this ball game. That quote from Whittingham makes it so clear. Quote, we have to be more committed to the run game this week. It's a Bruins defense. You talked about it. Dead last in rushing yards per game allowed. Number 128 out of 129 teams in yards per rush allowed. We can expect the Utes to grind it out on the ground, not worry so much about the struggles of Tyler Huntley of late. As for UCLA, well, they're going to have to trade points with a Utes team potentially without their starting quarterback on the field. But laying points with Utah, I'm not comfortable with that, even against a UCLA team that could be missing their best offensive weapon.
Game number 2. Let's go to SBR picks and SBR odds. It is Saturday night, prime time on ABC. Vautech is 2.5 on the road against Miami. The bet online odds, the total's 50. Look at this graphic. Here's the committee. They have Miami 10th and Virginia Tech 13th. But in the betting world, Vautech is 5.5 on a neutral. Smoke and mirrors with Miami. They've also had injuries. They don't have a replacement for Mark Walton, the running back. Their last 4 games, all within one possession in the fourth quarter. They could have lost them all. The Syracuse game, Carolina was driving late, one of the worst teams in the country last week. And then the Georgia Tech game in the rain, were on 4th down. It went through 2 DBs' hands, and Miami caught it and went on to win. Rick, quote, it doesn't matter where we are right now. If we win, we'll go up. If we lose, we'll go down. That's all there is to it. We win every game by 1. My guess is we'll be in the deal. They have this game. They also have Notre Dame at home. And if they win those 2, which I don't think will happen, you could get a Clemson in the ACC title game. So Rick is right there. They take care of business. They'll be fine. But not a lot to like when you see they've struggled in the last month.
Well, sure. I mean, they've been outrushed by not physical team. We're talking about North Carolina and Syracuse, 440 to 198 over the last 2 games. They really don't have a replacement for Mark Walton. When you're playing 4 straight games against lesser competition that are all within one possession of the fourth quarter, this is a Miami team that could have lost all 4 of those games, and we wouldn't be talking about them ranked ahead of Virginia Tech in the initial playoff committee rankings. But you know what the voters look at. Voters look at only one thing, wins and losses. That's the only thing that pays is they pay any attention to. So if you're undefeated, you just keep moving up. And in that case, Mark Richt is right in that regard. But on the other hand, how should bettors look at Mark Richt right now? I know he has Miami in position to be in the playoffs in the second season should they win out. But let's not forget the program he left that never got over the hump when he was there. All of a sudden, Georgia's ranked number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. That doesn't bode well for what we think about Mark Richt here in Las Vegas.
Then you have Virginia Tech ahead of schedule with Josh Jackson, the freshman quarterback. He's been terrific. From Michigan, how'd they blow that? They didn't get him. 2,000 yards passing, 8.5 yards per pass, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. We forgive the 2 interception game at Clemson, as that's a nasty defense. Only 2 picks, obviously, the rest of the season. Now, I like the defense, though. They've been playing well lately. They held Clemson to 330 yards in the loss at home. And then BC, North Carolina, and Duke a combined 20 points and an average of 234 yards. I love Virginia Tech in this game. I know it's a square play. They say always respect the lines maker, but Virginia Tech only 2.5 on the road. I think it's a great spot for Va Tech, and Miami's going to finally run out of gas, and the brakes won't go their way.
Well, let me ask you this, Pauly, because I wouldn't disagree with that assessment at all. I mean, the markets are telling you all you need to know. Forget the committee. The markets, who actually pay attention to something besides just what your win-loss record is, are telling you Virginia Tech is clearly the better of these two teams. But you say it's a square play. I'm not looking at that. I mean, the information that I've been getting is that it's the wise guys that like the Virginia Tech side of the equation, and the public more split on this contest. Have you gotten that same info, or are you hearing something different?
No, I just thought it'd be higher than 2.5. 3 showed earlier in the week. I'm surprised the line would be higher. And then it's still sitting there at 2.5 as we're a couple of days away from kickoff.
Sure, but remember, you're a sharp guy, Pauly. You know, you're not a square guy. You live in Las Vegas. You're around this stuff all the time. Sometimes when you live in Vegas, it's kind of an insular world, and you think, oh, everybody's thinking this out there. You know, Virginia Tech, again, from my sources, they're not a play that has been overwhelmingly popular with the betting public. It's been more the wise guys that are attracted. The Hokies is road chalk in this one.
Great info from Barry Trammell. I talked to him earlier today from the Oklahoman. We'll go over Bedlam, and we'll also get to LSU and Alabama with a big point spread coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Wrapping up big game breakdown on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Bet online, always sponsored and powered by exceptional customer service, strong promotions, every type of wager we're looking for. Bedlam, 1 o'clock Pacific on Fox, Saturday afternoon. Gundy, 2-10 against Oklahoma. And one of the wins, the Tyreek Hill game, when Oklahoma was a big favorite at home, when Oklahoma State shocked them on the road. Barry Trammell told me on the radio that since FDR was in the White House, 4 wins at home against Oklahoma for the Cowboys. It's ugly. And it's also early for Bedlam, as they have to move it up because the Big 12 has the conference title game now this year. Committee at Oklahoma 5, Oklahoma State 11. Winner still alive, 38-35. Oklahoma State, Rudolph, 19.5-point favorite. Then it was 58-23 and 38-20 Oklahoma the last couple years. The total, 76 at BetOnline. Oklahoma State down to 2.5 at home. I can't envision anyone being able to get stops here. The Oklahoma State defense is surprised of late. I can't believe they won a 13-10 game on the road, then beat West Virginia 50-39. Oklahoma's defense has struggled against Baylor and Kansas State with the backup as Ertz was out. Mike Stoops, the defensive coordinator, under fire in Norman. I think it's going to be a shootout, Teddy.
Well, I mean, we've certainly seen shootouts in the series. Obviously, you talked about that 38-35 upset that Mason Rudolph put together in his freshman season when they were 19.5-point dogs. But the last 2 years, I mean, it's been okay rolling. 58-23 over the total. 38-20 didn't get over the total last year, but the Sooners covered as 12-point chalks. And it's worth noting, Baker Mayfield, they only had to throw 19 passes in that game last year. Hit 13 of them for 288 yards, more than 20 yards per completion. And they just bulldozed Oklahoma State in the trenches. 343 rushing yards for the Sooners in that contest. Mason Rudolph was under pressure the entire game. Oklahoma's defensive front was the dominant, really both sides of the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line and their defensive line were dominant a year ago. Rudolph, 11 of 25, just 186 passing yards last year, no touchdowns. So not good numbers. The question is, Paul, and you nailed it, can either defense come up with stops this time around? And the graphic we're about to show you may tell you, hey, these defenses might be a little bit better than the markets would think. Certainly, when you look at the numbers, 358 yards per game, number 38 for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, number 51. And it's a Cowboys defense that has passed the eye test on several occasions. It's an Oklahoma defense that held Texas Tech to 1 touchdown in the final 3 quarters last week, much of the chagrin of Texas Tech and overbettors in that game. The pass rush was there all game. It's It's a Cowboys defense that's been pretty good, and it's a Sooners defense that has gotten better, Pauly. You see the quote from Lincoln Riley there. It really looks like Oklahoma feels a little bit more confident on the defensive side of the football. Riley, quote, "We've been making some good plays, tackling much better. The thing we've got to do, we've got to quit having those 1 or 2 plays a game where we come out of coverage or getting too aggressive and give teams an easy touchdown. I think our consistency will be very big in this ball game." Certainly, we've seen a lot of market support for Oklahoma as an underdog in this one, moving through the key number of 3 from a 3.5 opener to a 2.5 line as we record on Thursday morning.
All right. Well, he's saying the right things. I like what he said last week about, hey, the Big 12's the best conference, but they gave up a ton of points and almost blew a big lead to Texas, ton of yards rather. Gave up 35 points to the Kansas State backup and gave up 27 to Texas Tech, although a lot of that damage happened early. As you mentioned, going to be a great game. And you're right, the winner's still alive. Losers eliminate, I can tell you that. That's a fact. But Oklahoma State goes to Iowa State next week. Last up, 5 o'clock Pacific, CBS. LSU and Alabama. Cover your eyes. Alabama's 21, 48.5 the total. Bama 2 from the committee. If they play Georgia on a neutral right now, it would be maybe at least a 7-point favorite. Some have said 10, although I think that's too high. Saban says quit looking at the polls. It's poison. And we'll see if they come out pissed off here. That's an angle bettors like to look at. Will Wisconsin be in a bad mood? They were 9th. Will Alabama be in a bad mood as they were 2nd? And some people think they're the best team in the country.
Well, I mean, when you look at a team like Alabama, a number 2 ranking right now, it's a slap in the face. It's an insult, And here in Las Vegas, it's a slap in the face. It's an insult. There's no question who would be favored if Alabama played Georgia. Again, we showed earlier in the show the difference between the playoff committee and what Las Vegas thinks. It's a similar story right here. All right, Bama, you're number 2 by the committee. The reality is you'd be on a neutral, favored by a touchdown or more over Georgia. And certainly Saban's not going to lack for motivational tools for his team this week. Remember, when these teams played last year, was nothing tied into the 4th quarter before Alabama pulled it out 10-0 late. Linebacker Sean Hamilton, quote, "It was amazing. Those are the type of games that you come to Alabama for. 0-0. That's like a movie-type game, I felt. I remember being on the sidelines like, dang, it's really 0-0 going into the 4th quarter. You live for those kind of games." Now, it's a Bama team that only 4-4 against the spread. Jalen Hurts only completed 95 passes in 8 games, no more than 14 in any game. And this is the toughest defense they've faced since Florida State in the opener. So I guess you can make some cases here for LSU, but I'm not going to make a whole lot of them in this contest.
No, Bama hasn't played anybody. Let's be honest. They have 1 win over a team from a Power 5 conference with a winning record, and that was 5-3 A&M, and that was an 8-point game, and A&M hung in there. I don't think they're much of anything. Now you have LSU. Why are they ranked? Why are they in the rankings? They lost at home to Troy and were dominated in that game up front. Only 72 points in the last 7 meetings against Bama. Again, they brought in Cannon to be the new OC. Etling, as usual, quarterback play stinks with LSU. 94 passing yards and 24 dropbacks last year. Couldn't stretch the defense to open up for Fournette and Geis, who combined for 43 yards on 19 carries. He's made some strides, though. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, 9.4 yards per pass. Can he handle the pressure? Eddie Orgeron being shut out last year. It was out of character. There were some plays the receivers were wide open. Seemed like he was nervous or anticipating getting hit. It was totally unlike his character, but he did not play well. Now on this season, quote, "Everyone's waiting to see him win the big game." And let me say this correctly. He'll never win the big game by himself. We'll do it as a team. But until he does that, I think that's going to be his mark. And he knows that. Both teams fresh off the bye. That's always the case with these 2 teams. I would expect the public to get involved here with Alabama. What do you think, 21?
Well, I mean, we haven't seen a groundswell of support for Alabama from the public yet. But there's something that I want to talk about here with Danny Etling. Is not, and you read those 2 great Orgeron quotes. The first one was last year after the game, where he's like, "Oh, it's totally out of character. It's unlike his character." And this year he's like, "Well, it's not on Etling." We're not going to ask him to do anything. The numbers are certainly better this year, the 9.4 yards per pass attempt, but it's not like LSU's faced the toughest schedule. And I always keep going back. You remember those quotes that we read? We read the quotes for a reason. And just because we don't read one week doesn't mean it doesn't stay in your head. And I still remember the quote from Dino Babers talking about playing LSU and then going up to NC State the following week and saying NC State's way better than LSU. I mean, it's not even close. It's a Tigers defense that's not making plays. They've had 1 turnover or less created in 5 of their 8 games, and the offense isn't working. So, Alabama, they will be paying attention. Question is, for LSU, can they hang tough in what is likely to be a very hostile environment against a very focused Crimson Tide foe?
All right, let's lay it. Teddy wants to lay it. Betting number 414, Bama minus 21. Saban in a foul mood. Bama disrespected, they feel, being number 2 in the first playoff show. And I can't get this game out of my head. LSU at home, pushed around up front by Troy. Yes, the same team who lost at home is against South Alabama. Troy also fumbled going in and fumbled at their own 5. That was a blowout. They had no problems taking care of LSU. If you take out those 2 key turnovers, we'll lay the 21 at home for Bama in this one, betting number 414. Tomorrow, we recap everything. We got Thursday night football, 4 college games, Bills and the Jets, and we preview Friday night, the NFL card coming up on Sunday, the Raiders and the Dolphins. We'll also had some marquee games, Kansas City and Dallas as well. We'll talk to you on the weekend preview edition tomorrow on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Thanks for watching.